The new On3 rankings dropped yesterday, and we are chatting with Charles Power, the main man in charge, the director of scouting and rankings for On3. Charles, thanks for taking some time and chatting today, man.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I won't have you say anything bad about Newberg. He did set this up, so we'll give him a little bit of a pat on the back. But all right, the big one that everybody wants to talk about, obviously the most important position on the field. Our guy Luke saw a big rise yesterday. Talk a little bit about what went into Kromenhoek's rise in the rankings.
Yeah, I think with Luke Kromenhoek, it was really beneficial for us to see him in person at the Elite 11 finals. I came away from that event thinking that he arguably has the highest upside of anybody that we saw there. I'm sure y'all have talked about this ad nauseum, but he was a first-year starter as a junior, played behind four-star Auburn signee Holden Geriner at Benedictine. So I think with Kromenhoek, the physical tools have been apparent. I mean, he has a big arm. I think he has one of the bigger arms in the cycle. And that was, we could see that at the Elite 11. I mean, he drives the ball downfield 30, 40 yards really easily. Just has a lot of natural arm strength. And I think he moves really well. Additionally, a guy who played receiver prior to, I think maybe a receiver and safety, I want to say, prior to taking over as a starter. So I think the natural tools are there. Like I kind of compare him to like a Ryan Tannehill type physically, and in the play style I think is similar. But the biggest thing with him, I think, relative to his like ranking ceiling, is going to be how he plays as a senior. Like I think we're expecting him to have a really good year. Senior year for us is the biggest deal with quarterback evals. Like we're ultimately trying to project these guys as NFL talents. And if you look at top NFL draft picks at the position, almost all of them have really strong senior years. As they're kind of dominant, very productive. We kind of get into the analytic stuff with the stat profile. But I think Kromenhoek has the capacity to do that. I think the biggest thing with him is just getting more experience on varsity competition. But physically, what he showed just in terms of the translatable skills, I thought was really encouraging at the Elite 11.
Not to gas him up too much before the senior year, but I mean, he's number 3 right now. Only so far to go from there. Can he finish his 1, 2, top 3? I mean, certainly can finish the top 3. Can he get to the top of your rankings?
I mean, if he has a dominant season, I think that's entirely possible. I think it's important to stress with these recruiting rankings, there's a lot of fluidity with this. And for us, the evaluation extends past when most of these guys are committed. Like the recruitment does not necessarily dovetail with the timeline that we're evaluating. Like we're evaluating these guys up until the buzzer, like national all-star games. Some of them, we see them in person, like a matter of days before they enroll in college, like as early enrollees. So there's a lot of fluidity there, but I think the way I would phrase it is I think Luke Kromenhoek has some of the highest upside as a mover at the quarterback position going into the senior year. But a lot of it's going to hinge on how he progresses, because he just like his experience just is probably not to the degree of several others of these guys. Like some of these quarterbacks we've been watching for three plus years at the varsity level. The sample size with him is smaller. So I think there's a lot of volatility, like in terms of just how high he could go for sure.
I don't know if Shannon can afford it, but what do you think about trying to get Mike Norvell on staff? Because found him when he was an unranked prospect.
Yeah, that's impressive for
is
sure.
Is that one of the more insane finds that you've seen a kid go from a year and a half unranked to now a top 3 quarterback in the class?
Yeah, I mean that's the thing, man. I have a lot of like sympathy for these college coaches who have to make these quarterback evals so early, oftentimes before they play. I mean, I think we have an easier job than they do, because I mean they're forming their board really before you have a great feel of how good these guys really are as players. Like it's a lot of projection at just in recruiting quarterbacks. I mean, and it's so accelerated. So I think some of it is for sure like it's feeling good about what you saw in person. I know Kromenhoek, they had him in camp, and I think he's a guy that when you see him throw in person, it's going to look really good. I mean, he was throwing the ball 60 plus yards, I think, as like a ninth grader. So like you can see the pure talent, but I think there probably is a little like, hey, we're crossing our fingers and hoping he kind of materializes into that player. But man, I think there's not a lot of situations where you see like this where they have the like a school has the conviction to take a guy who's not a varsity starter and he ends up being, potentially a 5-star if he plays well as a senior.
Yeah. I want to talk to you in our next video. So a little teaser, a little plug about some of the things that go into the evaluation, into the rankings process. So stay tuned. If you guys are watching this, make sure you come back and check out that next one that we will do. But all right, other way here. I'm not going to give you a hard time. I know a lot of fan bases do on social media and everywhere else. But Kam Davis, Landen Thomas, slight drops, nothing crazy. Again, I'm not coming with a pitchfork just yet. But thoughts on Kam, Landen, maybe dropping a little bit in the rankings, and just them as prospects?
Yeah. I mean, I think to start with Kam Davis, I think he's a phenomenal football player. Like he is just like the toughness, the play style, the makeup, like it's 100% what you want. High school quarterback, very strong on contact, productive. I really don't have a lot of doubts he's going to be a really good college player. For us, we shuffled a little bit at the running back position just to kind of, like, I guess, peek behind the curtain. Most of our, like, the building blocks of the foundation of our rankings are done by position. So we like order all the running backs, all the quarterbacks, receivers, tight ends. So if you get jumped or moved down slightly in your position, that's going to manifest, with a marginal drop overall. So when we're putting this list together, there's 12 positions that factor into each rating range. So like, for instance, like Kam Davis, if he gets jumped by one or two running backs, like for instance, like a Jordan Marshall, like the Michigan commit, had like really great track times, moved him up. That pushes Kam Davis down. We have to sort like all the receivers, tight ends kind of in that group. So that could be like a 20 spot fall, which really is one spot in the position ranking. So it's like a lot of kind of moving parts with that, but really like him. I think the biggest question with Kam Davis is just like the top end speed. Like he's more of like a 4.6 type guy. I think he's a really tough runner, but can do a lot of things. I think an adjustment he's gonna have to make as well, in addition to just going from quarterback to like a pure running back taking carries, kind of like you saw from Cam Akers at Florida State. Is just like, I think he can improve as a pass catcher as well after seeing him in person at the Under Armour Atlanta camp. So I really like him. Like I think he has a high floor, and I think he'll be a really good player at Florida State, probably a multi-year starter. And Mike Norvell has done a great job of evaluating and producing running backs. I mean, you look at his history at Memphis, and it's like, I mean, he was producing running backs at a higher clip than like a lot of like blue blood schools. With Landen Thomas, we saw a ton of these top tight ends in person that week. We were out in California. I actually saw him. He was at the Elite 11. I think that like with him, he's now our third tight end. Caleb Odom moved ahead of him. I think he's just really solid across the board. A lot of what he does is like really translatable. What stands out to me the most is just like his shake and short area quickness. You watch his route running; it's really strong. He's not like, I think this is a pretty good tight end class. He's not relative to some of the others as like physically imposing. Probably like a shade under 6'4", around 240. But I think he can do a lot of different things for you. He can line up in line. Obviously, he comes from a top high school program. So for us, I think he's our third tight end, and still really like what he brings to the table. I think he's not like at tight end. A lot of it is like athletic size projection with him. I think he is probably a little more advanced and polished playing a pure tight end role, like you see him play at Colquitt County. And I think he has the look of a guy who could probably get on the field early at a position where you don't typically see a lot of freshman tight ends make impacts.
Yeah. I want to talk to you about a guy who went way up in the rankings. Just before that, I want to give some love to Garnet and Gold, guys. Hey, guys, we're just a little over 50 days away for kickoff against LSU. If you haven't gotten your new jersey yet from garnetandgold.com or whatever you'll be wearing to the game, make sure you get it. You do not want the item that you want to be sold out should not be shopping anywhere else other than garnetandgold.com. Use code NOSLAW, NOSLAW, for 15% off. They are the best when it comes to Florida State merchandise, gear, and athletic apparel. Garnetandgold.com, NOSLAW for 15% off. Okay, Elijah Moore went from unranked, and a lot of Florida State fans have been pounding their chest because this was a head-to-head with Ohio State, and he just recently committed, but went from unranked to nearly a top 100 athlete. Talk to us a little bit about Elijah Moore there.
Yeah, we saw Elijah Moore in person at the OT7 finals in California. Man, like, I think he has a case as having the biggest catch radius in the 2024 cycle. I mean, I had some verified measurements from him from a college that he visited, and they were really encouraging, like his arm length. He's like around 6'4", 190. His arms are close to 34 inches. He's one of the longer, like, limbed pass catchers, at least receivers in the cycle. And he sticks out in that regard. And like, I think he's a true like X outside receiver, but seeing him in person at OT7, man, he was like coming down. Like he had, I would say, of the 10 best catches we saw that week, I'd say 5 of them were from Elijah Moore. Like he's just climbing the ladder, boxing out DBs, acrobatic, like even like, I think the hands are extremely like strong. He has huge hands, extremely strong. He's winning most of those like jump ball and just contested catches. So it was a revelatory performance for him because like going into that event, you know, at Good Counsel, he's not like in a pass happy offense. He doesn't have stats that are going to catch your eye. So a lot of it with him is seeing him in person. And that's, I know, like, you know, Brian Hartline was going after him. I think Brian Hartline's the best evaluator of receivers in the country. You look at his track record at Ohio State, it's unreal, to be honest. Yeah. And I think the fact that he was going after Elijah Moore kind of shows you that he saw something. I think for us, it was just a matter of seeing him in person, and he was phenomenal. Like I think, you know, I think he could continue to move up. I think the more we see him in person, like I think seeing him at a national all-star game would be great. I don't know how productive he'll be at Good Counsel as a senior. That's something we'll monitor. Like we watch all these guys' senior years like extremely closely. That's really what matters to us the most. I mean, I know like for y'all and everyone in the media, college football media, during the season, how the team is doing matters. But for me and kind of for what we do, I'm watching high school football like all fall. So like Friday nights, Saturday mornings, during the week, like we're watching games. So Elijah Moore is one we'll be watching closely. I would not be surprised if his upward trajectory is not over.
Wow. Yeah. Let's get him up there for the fans to sing your praises as opposed to giving you a hard time. I feel like Florida State fans are probably pretty cool on you after these rankings. All right, one more and we'll wrap up. Rydarius Morgan out of Phoenix City, Alabama, recently committed to the Noles over the Canes and Tigers, Auburn Tigers. Thoughts on Red Morgan? He had a little bit of a rise as well.
Yeah, Red Morgan is, I think what stands out to me is just the physicality, how fast he comes downhill. I mean, he throws his body around. He plays really good competition at Phoenix City Central in Alabama. Several of his teammates are Power 5 prospects, which I think is kind of how he got discovered. Teams were coming through watching Cam Coleman, guys like that, and he got on the radar that way. But yeah, I mean, I just love the effort level he plays with. He's a hair on fire defender. He's all over the field, physical. I think he's not the biggest guy, like probably like 5'10 and a half, 5'11", but has good length. And I think he has the capacity to add weight and get bigger. But he's just a guy. I think he's like an enforcer. He's a guy you want on your defense. I think he's an attitude. Has a positive attitude and kind of brings that level. I mean, Florida State's had guys like that on their team, like Jamie Robinson was a guy, that kind of guy. I could see Red Morgan being that type in the Florida State defense. So I think he's a guy who has probably maybe even more team value than you would assess to like just his recruiting ranking. And I think he's a guy who could play special teams early as well.
Cool. Charles, where can people find your work, find the rankings, and give yourself a little bit of a shout out and plug here?
Yeah, on3.com. Our social accounts have huge followings. It's at On3 Recruits, at On3 Sports on everything. My stuff is just at Charles Power, POWER, on social, and all my writing and stuff is at on3.com. So yeah, I think we're pretty excited about how things are going with On3. and just looking forward to doing the best work we can.
Awesome. Good stuff. Well, I appreciate it, man. Again, stay tuned. We'll have another video come with Charles here in the very near future on their rankings, the industry, percentages, weighted value, all of that stuff in just a day or so. So make sure you stay tuned and check that out. Charles, again, thank you for hanging out.
Sure thing.
I appreciate Charles Power for hanging out with us today. We have another video coming up with him in just a day or so. It'll dive into the evaluation and the ranking process at On3 and why it's better than anywhere else. You don't want to miss that, so make sure you're subscribed and tune into it. If you missed our latest update on FSU recruiting and the good news that we expect and anticipate, you can click right here to check it out.